year was kind of a watershed moment in terms of the number of glasses that are coming to market. So again, this will be the norm very soon. Now, I'm not Nostradamus. I cannot exactly predict the future, but close enough. And the big change with this is that you will get real-time contextual data overlaid directly onto the physical world. Your interactions will be frictionless. You will have the seamless hands-free navigation for communication and discovery. So no more digging your phone out of your pocket, no more poking at it, right? Everything will happen right in front of your eyes. And because of this, we'll have greater situational awareness. There will be fewer interruptions, and you will have a deeply enhanced connection with reality. So there are three themes that I want to talk about today to guide this feature. The first is, how do we design and build this? Because we are at the very earliest stages of this new way of thinking and building. So how do we create intuitive and safe interfaces that are useful but not overwhelming? Because that's critical. How do we then ensure universal access? Because none of this is worth anything if everyone cannot access it. So we need to make sure we have robust infrastructure, connectivity, and good hardware. And then the third thing is, as great as this will be, we need to make sure that people can in fact disconnect. That people can take off their glasses, can turn off their glasses, and engage with the real world in a meaningful way. So a little bit of history. In 2013, Google started rolling out Google Glass. Now, Google Glass didn't last very long. They were functionally dead for at least consumer use by 2015, although they continued along with enterprise use until about 2023. Google Glass was a bold vision, but it was too early, and there were a lot of things that ultimately doomed it. The first was, I mean, they looked absurd, right? If you have not seen Google Glass, I would encourage you to do some Google image searching after this talk, because they were like little face computers. They were useful, and they were interesting, but you look like a dork, right? And because of that, people didn't want to wear them. They didn't want to walk around with this little computer strapped to their face. The other thing that doomed Google Glass was issues around privacy. Now in 2013, we did not have the same comfort with being videotaped at all times that we do in 2026. I think most of us live with the assumption that someone is recording us at any given moment, whether that's on a phone, on a CCTV camera, anything like that. But this was still new back then, so people were pretty freaked out. And it led to like bars in San Francisco saying you couldn't wear the glasses, people occasionally getting things thrown at them when they wore the glasses, which is not okay. But it was a different moment. So now we have evolved. Now the North Focals, if anyone remembers these, I want to give a shout out to, yes, thank you. I want to give a shout out to the North Focals, because they really were the greatest glasses at a kind of a bad time. So they were designed beautifully. If you haven't, again, seen the North Focals, I would encourage you to take a look. They were these cool, clunky, black hipster frames. They looked great. They had really good features. You could use heads-up maps, you could call an Uber, you could check your messages. So they had a lot of the feature sets that people are looking for. But what ultimately killed them was the fact that they weren't distributed in a good way. So they had two locations, both in pretty expensive real estate markets, where you had to go, get your head scanned, and get fitted for your custom device. So that right there created a huge barrier to entry for most people. They were really expensive, so again, that created a barrier to entry. And because of this, they were a commercial failure. North is no longer in existence. Their IP was bought by Amazon, which I think is pretty interesting, because Amazon, to this point, has not been an entrant into the smart glasses market. So we'll see where this goes. But this year, oh, this year, is going to be the golden age, or at least the beginning of the golden age. So we've got Meta. They've sold 2 million units, more than 2 million units, of their Ray-Bans. Now the Ray-Bans are great. They are not full AR glasses, right? They have very limited functionality, but that is still a sign that people in the market are willing to wear glasses that have certain capabilities. They announced Orion at Connect in 2024. Orion will probably not be to market anytime soon because they're too expensive to produce, but they were an incredible demo at least. The display glasses that were announced last year with that unfortunately glitchy demo are also good. They're early, they're getting there. Initial reviews have been mixed, but they're adding more features as we speak. Google has learned their lesson from 1.0 and is coming back to market with new Google Glasses this year. Xreal just raised $100 million. They are now a unicorn. So they are in market. HTC's Vive Eagle was at CES. Lenovo announced a prototype at CES. So this is the year when things start to really take off, and that's what's exciting. But all of the best hardware on Earth is functionally meaningless without really good software and applications, right? This is the challenge that virtual reality has had. The headsets are amazing, but there's no one killer app. There are a lot of great use cases for virtual reality, and I'm a big proponent of the technology, but we have not yet found that one killer application. But in the glasses space, there are many. And the one that I think initially will be a really big converter is heads-up directions. Because when I was on the T coming over here this morning, this was how I was functioning. Right? And it's not just me, it's everyone. We all do this, we all find it annoying when other people do it, and we all do it ourselves. But imagine you just walked and looked straight ahead and followed an arrow, right? That is a huge differentiator. And that's really exciting. So whoever can really own that is really gonna own the market. Ambient notifications, again, I was walking over here this morning, my phone was in my bag, started buzzing, and I had to take off my gloves, dig it out of my bag, take my phone out, my hands are freezing, answer a text, right? It's just not a great user experience. When I'm wearing the glasses, right in front of my eyes, and all I have to do is speak or make hand motions to answer that text. Voice and neural input, really important difference in how we're going to communicate with these glasses. But we can respond in real time. There will be no delay where we're having to dig through bags, dig out phones, open apps, right? Seamless communication. And everything will be context aware. So you'll get notifications that are timed based on what time of day it is or where you are, right? Notifications can be based on urgency or relevance. So everything won't just come at once. It will be timed perfectly for whatever your interests are. So what we're trying to do is enhance the world. We are not replacing it. And I want to make very clear that if we get into a situation where people are talking about diminished reality, where you are basically blocking out certain things in the world, that's not okay. We don't want a situation where you can have an app that, say, blocks out unhoused people on the street, or creates a sort of Potemkin village where the world actually looks better than it is. There is an argument for creating what my friend calls microdose glasses, where you see everything just a little bit brighter. I'm okay with that. But we want to make sure that this technology is an enhancement. So you can do all sorts of things, right? Super simple, historical overlays, really common. I know that SNAP and a museum in Abu Dhabi are doing something right now to kick this off, but this is going to be huge. And you can see everything in the context of what you're interested in, what language you speak, what type of information you want to see. Education and tourism, again, when you're traveling, you don't want to have to be looking at screens all the time and reading. You want to be able to hear it, and you want to be able to hear it in the way that you want. Opt-in layers. Now, this is where things get really tricky. And this is something that was brought up on the panel yesterday afternoon. When we talk about facial rec, we want to be very careful, because facial rec that is universal is not okay. We've already seen some kids up the street at Harvard build an app where you would put on the glasses and anyone that walked into your field of view would be identified. That's not all right. But there are contexts where there's double opt-in consent where it's useful, like this event, or like a memory care facility. If anyone has dealt with a grandparent who has passed away from Alzheimer's or dementia, you know how gutting and heart-wrenching it is when you go say hi to your grandma and she doesn't know who you are, right? There are suggestions and be really, really useful. And the last thing is the safety issues, because although Waymo is coming, and smart cars, self-driving cars are coming, we're gonna have a big period of time where people are driving and wearing the glasses. So we need to make sure we are designing such that people can do this safely. I want to talk about something that's going to be a huge trend and that I think no one in branding or advertising is thinking about as of yet. Because too many ad agencies are really consumed with AI, and sure, fine, that's going to disrupt their model, but this will disrupt their model infinitely more. So if I am wearing my glasses and AI is powering it, AI knows my social graph. AI knows my preferences, it knows what I like. So there is no reason that AI in my glasses cannot serve me personalized contextual ads for brands that I want. So I don't drink soda. I gave it up 15 years ago, plenty of other vices, that's just not one of them. So every time Coke or Pepsi or Mountain Dew serves me an ad, it's a wasted impression. Now, for Coke and Pepsi, they're multi-billion-dollar companies, they don't care. They built that into their models. But for smaller independent brands, that's a really big challenge. So rather than just throwing spaghetti against the wall and hoping something sticks, you will be able to micro-target your exact consumer at the exact time they want to see your product. So 7 in the morning, I'm probably not going to be interested in wine, unless I've had a really bad day. 7 p.m. I might be, and vice versa for something like coffee or tea. Now, it's never going to be 100% perfect because there's always like personal taste built into this, but it's going to really radically narrow things down. There are no more wasted impressions, and as an added bonus, all the space right now that's kind of ugly with billboards and signs, right, on the highway or a bus stop or whatever, that can be white space, it can be art, it can be anything we want it to be. It doesn't have to just be ads for big brands. So this, I think, is going to be one of the most radical shifts that mass adoption of these glasses will bring. Now let's talk about a practical use case. And this is not life or death, right? I want to make this clear. But I also think this is illustrative of the way that people will use this to solve problems. So a few weeks ago, my husband and I had had a really long week. We were really tired. We didn't feel like cooking. We didn't really want to order. So we were like, okay, let's just go to dinner. We live in a neighborhood, luckily, that has a lot of great restaurants. So we figured, okay, we'll just walk around, we'll find something. Problem is, when you have a lot of really great restaurants and it's a Friday night at 7 p.m., a lot of those great restaurants will be packed. So we start walking, and we're walking in, and we're just striking out, and then we find some place that has seats, maybe we don't like the menu, and on and on and on, right? And we're hungry, and we're tired. So here's how this will work in 10 years. I tell my glasses, I want to go to dinner in half an hour. Now the first data point that my glasses grab is data from all of the glasses being worn by every server, bartender, and host in my neighborhood. Because they're getting heat maps of how crowded the restaurant is. And so if the restaurant is crowded enough where there's no tables, and I have no shot at getting in, not even gonna suggest it. And then I can say, okay, I want this type of food, this type of price point, narrow it down. And what the glasses will do is give me 2 or 3 options. I pick one. They say, great, your table will be ready in half an hour, and I'm out the door. And again, having to wander around looking for a restaurant is not that big of a deal, but it's a problem, and this is the solution. But here are some things that can stand in the way of that solution. Right now, there are governments in the world that have the power to shut down the internet. It happened in Iran recently. It's happening in Uganda around their elections. It happens in India sometimes. North Korea and Turkmenistan have no functional, real open internet. So we need to make sure that we see connectivity as a human right, because everyone should be able to benefit from this. Now, even in democracies that have functional internet, there's still a lot of gaps. I came up here on the train from New York City yesterday. There were big parts of Connecticut where I had no signal, right? I couldn't use my phone really. So that is another thing that we need to solve, these resilient networks, because that's a lot of data that people are gonna be downloading, right? And the last thing we want is people to not be able to interact with this. And of course, then we need to make sure the devices are affordable. We need to make sure that there are different price models at different ranges. Now for the first few years of this will be something that people who probably have a little bit more money are using. And that's okay, but eventually, we need to make sure there are good glasses at different price points available to all. And then we need to design responsibly. So we need to make sure that while we are getting notifications, we are getting the notifications that we want and need. And this again is where AI comes in. Because there are 3 notifications I could get today. One of my best friends from college is about to give birth, and if she sends me a picture of her baby, that's a high priority notification. I want to see that. Cute little baby. My husband can text me, hey, here's a meme that made me think of you, right? We just text each other memes back and forth. That's nice, but that's not that high a priority, right? I can get to it when I get to it. And then there's always that message about how my car warranty is about to expire, or how Amazon would love to hire me, and I just have to send my bank account number somewhere. Obviously spam. Don't do this, right? So that's something that in the future I won't even get. Like all of the spam, all of the junk, AI will filter that out directly. But then it'll get even smarter and filter, okay, this thing that your friend sent you about getting dinner next week can wait, right? We need to design for physical safety. So again, lockouts for if you're driving or even cycling, right? Make sure that safety is paramount. Again, with facial rec, we cannot have covert facial rec. And we need to make sure that if people are taking video of other people, they are not doing deep fakes or abusive editing. So there was legislation very recently, I can't believe I'm gonna say this, Paris Hilton and AOC did a bill together about revenge porn, and it's actually great. So we need to make sure that that is built into the future. And then we need to focus on digital well-being, because again, having ubiquitous worlds of information, literally inches from our eyeballs, has a lot of upside, but particularly for youth, a lot of downside. We've already seen the damage that parents who have iPad kids are doing. They are one-shotting their children's brains. And it will only get worse if you give young children glasses and let them run free. So we need to make sure that we have laws and regulations around the safe use of this. We need to make sure that we have a right to disconnect. And I don't necessarily mean that in sort of the legal way that they have in Europe. I mean, we need to create social norms where it's okay to turn off your notifications or to take off your glasses or to be away. Because the idea that you can respond to everything quickly in real time does not mean that you should have to respond to everything quickly in real time. We need to make sure that there is etiquette for existing in public spaces wearing your glasses. So if you're out to dinner with your friends or your spouse or another person, making sure that your notifications are turned off. Because if someone's on their phone at dinner, right, it's pretty obvious. It's pretty rude sometimes, but it's really obvious. If I've got my glasses on and no one else can see what's in my glasses, people are gonna question, is she paying attention to what I'm saying, or is she just kind of like scrolling through her text notifications, trying to find something better? And we need, of course, parental controls and regulations in schools to make sure that kids, again, aren't just spending all their time in their glasses, not learning anything and cheating. So how do we build the future together responsibly? The first thing that we do is design for context, friction-free help, and delight. Now, not every experience in your glasses is going to be delightful. Some of it will just be educational, some of it will just be useful, but it needs to be built in a way that does not make people functionally really miserable. We need to make sure that there is universal access, that everyone will eventually have the opportunity to be part of this new world. We need to make sure that privacy protocols and consent are embedded by default and shut down anyone who tries to create workarounds. We also need to discuss the ethics of recording, because there are a lot of circumstances where it's actually okay to record without people knowing that you are doing it. I'm thinking of what's happening in the protests right now. I'm thinking of what's happening in Iran. So I'm thinking of what happens when you are physically unsafe as a woman, perhaps, or a person of color or a queer person in a space where you might not be safe. You should be able to record that and not have anyone know. You should not be able to record a house party with your friends without their knowledge and consent. So we need to really make sure that there are clear lines about when it's okay and not okay to use these glasses to record. We need to design for things to be safe enough to unplug, safe enough to take your glasses off. And then we need to collaborate. This will not just be built by one person or one organization, right? There will be a lot of hardware providers, a lot of software providers, and a lot of folks who are building in this space. We need to work with policymakers, designers, and builders to make sure that this is the future that we want. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today. The future is happening right in front of our eyes. It's really, really exciting. Everything that came out of CES was so thrilling to me, and I'm thrilled to be part of it. So if you are interested in following me on socials, every social handle is just my name. My website is Cortney-Harding. That's my email. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I'll be hanging out afterwards. Thank you so much, and I think I have time for a few questions, hopefully. Somebody tell me if I don't, but
When do you go in then?
I'm gonna take questions until they tell me not to. How about that?
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And yes, it was a great talk, Courtney, thank you. Many excellent points there. I was really struck by the way you described our physical landscape changing as a result of having digital advertising on glasses. That kind of blew my mind when I think through that a little bit more. But I was also thinking about the car example, driving in cars, and what I'm thinking of is when we get into cars, our phone connects, we get our text messages read out to us.
Yeah.
You know, put up the display on the windshield, you know, switch from the glasses to there. And then and that made me think about you didn't say this, but I don't think, but are these glasses going to replace the phone altogether? And what?
I don't think so. So there are experiences that you can have on a flat screen that you don't really want to do in glasses. I'm thinking of like reading a book, right? I read books on magazines on my Kindle, on my laptop, on my smartphone. I'm not going to read a whole magazine. I'm not going to read a whole New York article in my glasses, right? I might listen to one, and I think we are moving towards kind of a more audio future than reading future. But I do think there are certain experiences that are going to be better. Like, the glasses will not functionally replace anything, right? So I have my stack. I have my laptop, which does some things. I have my phone, which does some things. I have my watch, which does some things. I have my AirPods, right? So the glasses are going to be a shift, but it's not going to be like 100%. It's just going to be, I mean, for the tech companies, that's great, right? It's another thing we have to buy every couple of years. Yeah.
Been a while since I've seen Courtney. Hi.
Hi.
Good to see you. But thank you so much for the talk. One of the things that was coming to mind for me, at least, is that, especially with the way the glasses are coming along, especially I'll harken to your example about finding a place to eat, right? Yeah. It kind of takes out the busy work of like, oh, okay, I have to go through Google Maps, I have to be like, what's open, blah, 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 blah. I feel like it's a similar thing with when back in the past we had to have a travel agent for getting a flight. We don't really need that much anymore unless you are extremely busy and you know, need somebody to do that. So I'm wondering, if we're continuing to kind of like remove like any friction between certain things, that's definitely going to cancel out some jobs that exist.
For sure.
But I'm wondering, because I think that is not so much like things are just going to disappear, it's going to create new jobs. So I'm wondering, is there one sector in particular that you think is going to have like a revival, or perhaps something? Because like I'm thinking, well, if people start kind of losing that agency, we'll say, over like choosing where they go to dinner, yeah, they get some options, but they're like, I want an adventure, like I want to do something special. Do you think that's like potentially another industry to be had?
Yeah, so I think like custom curated experiences are actually going to really come back in the age of AI, because like people still want delight and surprise, and I think when things are kind of designed by committee or designed by algorithm, that takes a lot out of it. So I'm advising a company right now that does this in the fashion space, and they use the metaverse and headsets to collect a lot of data by building like virtual clothing stores, and then they can track like exactly where people are looking, how their eyes are lighting on things, what specifically they're looking at, all of that. And it's really cool data, but it shouldn't be like the only data out there, right? Like what you need ideally is a collaboration between designers and builders and data providers who can then create things that are unique and interesting, but also informed by data. I'm getting the signal. So I'm going to be around afterwards. I'll be here for the next 2 hours before I head back to New York. You can also just add me on Instagram or LinkedIn or socials or whatever, and I'm happy to chat more afterwards. But thank you so much. Thanks. Here's
Is that your tripod?
This is.
That's your
It's mine,
tripod?
yeah.
May we borrow that? Can you stay for our talk?
I can, yeah. Let me just stop this recording, which is weirdly not stopping.
It might be like pressing on a button.
Oh, yeah. Let's do that.